Hello everybody and welcome to CFO Conversations. I'm really excited today. This series is going to be really exciting, and I've got two powerful women here that you can see on camera, Rachel Grimes and Taryn Ralton, and both got a lot of involvement in IFAC. As some of you might know, Rachel Grimes has just finished her stint as IFAC president. And I think what both ladies have got to say is going to be of great value to us, I know, in the community. So welcome, ladies. I'm going to start our conversations today, and the first conversation I want to have with us is around the CFO role. Okay, no surprises there. We know and we hear so much as what is the CFO role? You know, talking about the future of the CFO. It's kind of like the future's here. What is it that we should actually be doing, and how should we be thinking about, you know, whether we've got a skills gap or whether the organization has a gap? You know, what should we be doing as CFOs? I'm going to come to you, Rachel, first. I know it'll be a big conversation, but you know, what are your key points on what the CFO should be doing?
Well, look, I think the CFO role is different in every organisation, but there are obviously foundation parts that are the same, and we are the steward of the assets of the company, and to make sure that we're using the scarce economic resources in the most beneficial way we can for all stakeholders. So I think that's the first part, but I think the role of the CFO is revolutionary in where we've come from. And, you know, if you looked on the dials on a Model T Ford versus now, you know, the latest aeroplane, that's how I think of the CFO role. You know, before it was just how fast you were going and what petrol you needed, but now there's so many different factors that make the CFO role, and that's what makes it exciting. And, you know, we can go through the A, B, C, Ds and E's, which like artificial intelligence, blockchain, controls, cybersecurity, data analytics. And, you know, that's just opened up a whole new world. And I think, you know, you need to know technology, you need to understand risk, you need to understand mergers and acquisitions and therefore valuations and what does it mean. You need to understand benchmarking. Where do you fit versus your competitors? So I think that's what makes the CFO role so exciting, and, you know, one that we should aspire to. And I'm sure if you ask me this question, Paula, in a few more years, I'd have a lot more dials. It just gets bigger and better.
Is it going to end?
I think that's the exciting part. You want to be part of a career or a profession where there's change. Yeah. You don't want to just be stuck in, you know, the way. And I think that's a fascinating part, that we're always learning. Yeah. Sometimes a little bit frustrating, particularly in tax legislation, etc. But we're always learning. It's not stagnant, and it's exciting.
Yeah, great. And I think also over the last 18 months with COVID having hit us and challenged us as a business, you know, finance has come to the front. I think it's almost like finance has almost become sexy again, where people are really seeking out finance and not leaving them out.
Well, I'm not sure when finance was sexy, but I'll leave that to you. But I think COVID has presented a number of challenges. First and foremost, to look after our people and to look after our markets. And, you know, our people might not just be in the immediate vicinity, but, you know, we look and we feel for India at this time, particularly as many entities have outsourcing arrangements. And that inability to complete those contracts has meant we've had to change the way we do things, and very quickly. And I know a lot of companies really struggled if they had March reporting dates to get everything required to meet their regulatory obligations. But I don't know anyone that really put it in late. The finance teams got together and they worked their way through the issues, and they delivered on time and with great level of accuracy. Yeah. It wasn't just the best endeavours.
Yeah. And Taryn, you've got a slightly different lens because you're in the world of education. But what are you seeing in terms of what the CFO role is today?
I think for me, the CFO role it's not just a static role. It's not a role whereas maybe 15 years ago you were doing the standard reports, you were looking at the numbers, making sure they were accurate. There's a lot more focus on the forward piece of the CFO role. So really guiding the strategy. And I think that's been work of a lot of really excellent CFOs who've really elevated the skill set that we bring and been able to communicate and engage with people in a way that helps them translate the strategy into results. And so for me, I absolutely agree with the pieces that Rachel's raised. You can't be able to talk about strategy if you don't understand your technology. You don't understand really the way things are going globally. So I think there's actually a huge role for the CFO to show what they can do and to show how the numbers are really relevant, and the financial function is very, very relevant to all areas of the business in terms of translating that strategy into the results and delivering on that. So for me, there is a huge piece, as I mentioned, on technology and really understanding where value comes for your consumers and who your stakeholders are in this market. As you've rightly acknowledged, I'm in education. Education's been very significantly hit by the COVID response. It affected our business model very significantly. But there are so many organisations and so many industries that have been hit either positively or negatively. And it's really a case of how can you pivot, get the systems, get the processes in place so that you can progress and grow the business.
And I think that's been a challenge, because if I think about, a couple of different sort of styles of CFO, there's those that are more agile and are more focused and more commercial. But, out there, we still have CFOs who isn't a strong skill set of theirs to be that business partner or to be that sort of, driver of the whole dashboard. There's some CFOs out there that might actually want to be more of a co-pilot or even a backseat driver. How can people think about stepping into what's required, maybe closing some of those skills gaps? I mean, this is a beautiful forum for them to be thinking about that. It's a supportive, anonymous forum that you can actually learn as you listen. But what are some things that CFOs could do? What have you seen work? What's your thoughts there?
Oh, look, I think the key is talking to other CFOs, and this forum does provide that. And it's a wonderful way to, ask questions. I always think people love talking about themselves and love sharing their stories, and most people are there to help. They've faced these things, and they've learned along the way, and they want to impart that wisdom. And so I think there is a fabulous network, and it's not just a network, it's a connection. And so I think drawing upon people to get that guidance, I think going to forums such as Chartered Accountants of Australia and New Zealand, CPA forums, ACCA forums, all of them, provide wonderful forums where you can talk about these issues and learn from the latest and greatest from the guest speakers. Yeah. I think the other thing about it is we have a wonderful framework, those of us who have accounting qualifications, all of them globally recognised by IFAC, that framework. But how do we keep pushing out that framework and continuing to learn is important. And so I think a lot of reading, I think the financial press is your first stop. I think the conversations, I think talking to analysts, if you get the opportunity, what makes an analyst want to buy that company and invest in that company? And a lot of the times it's people first, and then it's a market and it's the opportunity. And so I think, as a CFO, you should ask yourself, what did you want from your CFO, for your people? And continuously think about that, and how do you develop your people along the way? Because often you can't be an expert in everything. So encourage your people to be experts in specific things that can really help you. And I think, we see that right now with changing accounting standards and, AASB 17 or IFRS 17 coming in. On the insurance standard, that impacts a lot more people than what we think. And, you can pick up a phone and ask people how they've gone about it and how they can help. And then make sure that you pay that back or pay that forward. Yeah. And, take that phone call when someone's asking you for help. Yeah, so definitely. That, I think, is some of the best and easiest advice I have on those topics.
Yeah, nice. And I think also surrounding yourself is important by people who think differently to ourselves. And so, yes, having a finance community, but having a community that includes non-finance people as well. Like you say, talking to the analysts, they might not necessarily have an accounting background. They've got more commercial backgrounds. So, yeah, thinking about having different perspectives is really important, and having conversations.
And I'd add to that, in your own organisation, even in a small organization, speak to peers in completely different portfolios. So always have a friend who's really, got a senior role in HR. That will teach you more about understanding the issues that people face at an organizational level, about dealing with large workforces much, much more easily than reading a book. So have some people in different environments who you can even ask a finance question and they'll give you a different perspective. Actually about building your idea and building your skill set. So as we've mentioned, you can actually just ring someone and ask them and ask the silly question. And do that in a safe environment and then test it yourself. But absolutely don't look for the people who are going to tell you the stuff you want to hear or who are the same as you. You have to listen out for others.
And that's sensational advice, Taryn. I particularly like mentoring people from other parts of the organisation, a lot younger, and getting their perspective, because you learn what's happened in a very safe environment, as you say. And you're putting back, you're giving to them, but the more you can do it in different parts, the more you learn. So you're getting just as much as you're giving.
I read something recently that said, if you're over 40, you need to be mentoring someone under 25, because you've got that different perspective and generational perspectives as well.
Yes, I remember going to a meeting with someone a few years ago, and they were talking about emails, and they said, you do know that no one under our age reads an email or ever reads an email. And I'd never even thought of it. And so we were emailing all these things thinking, everyone will read this. No one was reading it. So it's hearing some of those things about the reality of the experience for someone else is very valuable and made me feel very old.
Well, now that I run my own small business, I have a 10-10-10 rule. So you've got to say something 10 times in 10 different ways. That means 10 different methods of communication, and 10% of your audience will hear it. So that's a worry.
More people are listening to you than that.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. That's a great conversation. And as always, lots of food for thought, and we can talk about it for so much longer, but thank you for your insights.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.